It was the silence that bothered me the most. I live in a small apartment, nothing special. Just me, my TV, and an old couch. A few months ago, I started ordering from the same pizza place. The delivery driver was always the same, this tall, lanky guy with a dull, blank stare. He never said much, but he always smiled in a way that felt too wide, like it was stretched out unnaturally. I didn't think much of it at first. People are weird, right? But then something happened. It started with the knock. It was late, around 11 p.m. I just finished my usual midnight snack, 2 slices of pizza, nothing fancy, when I heard a knock at the door. Slow, methodical, the kind of knock you can't ignore. At first, I thought maybe I'd forgotten I'd ordered again, or that I'd just been too tired to remember. But when I opened the door, there was no one. Nothing but the cool night air and the empty hallway. I checked the time, no sign of the usual delivery guy. I closed the door, assuming it was some weird mistake. But it didn't end there. The knocks started coming every night at the same time. 11 p.m., even if I didn't order anything. Always that slow, deliberate tap, tap, tap. I finally gave in and ordered another pizza, hoping that maybe it would stop if I just gave the delivery driver his due. This time I sat by the door waiting. It was 10:55 when I heard the first knock. I opened the door immediately, and there he was, standing there in his usual position. The same blank stare, the same unblinking eyes. But this time his smile was gone. "Your pizza," he muttered, and I took it from his hands, feeling a shiver run down my spine. As I turned to close the door, something felt off. He didn't move. He just stood there staring. No thank you. No goodbye. I stepped back, feeling that strange unease crawl up my back. "Thanks," I asked, unsure what else to say. The man didn't respond. He just stood there. But then, he did something that made my blood freeze. He turned his head slowly, as though something inside him was creaking with each movement. I caught a glimpse of his neck. There was something dark, black. It looked like it was writhing. "Don't open it," he whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. I froze. "Don't open what?" My voice came out shaky, but I didn't care. But he didn't answer. Instead, his fingers curled around the edge of the door, and for a split second, I felt a pressure that didn't make sense. Like he was trying to pull the door back open, without touching it. "Don't open it," he repeated, and then, before I could say another word, he was gone. I didn't know what to do, but I didn't want to seem crazy. I shut the door, locked it, and set the pizza on the kitchen counter. But the smell was off. It didn't smell like fresh pizza. It smelled like something rotting, decaying. My stomach churned, but I told myself it was just the stress. I opened the box anyway. I had to check. What I saw made my stomach drop. The pizza wasn't pizza at all. The crust was dark, almost black, and the cheese was a sickly, greasy yellow. But the worst part, the pepperoni. They weren't pepperoni. They were strips of flesh, smooth, pale, and soft. I stumbled back, knocking over the box. My breath was coming too fast, too shallow. And that's when I noticed something else. There, beneath the layers of what could barely even be called pizza, was a small, folded note. It read, "You can't escape me." The moment I read those words, I felt it. The darkness creeping at the edges of my vision. Something was wrong. Something had changed. The knocking started again, just like before. Tap, tap, tap. This time I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The fear was so heavy in my chest, I thought I might collapse right there on the floor. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to look. I had to know. I stood up slowly, shakily, and I walked to the door. My hand was trembling so badly I almost couldn't unlock it. When I opened it, there was no one there, but I knew he was still watching. I could feel his presence lingering in the hallway. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. On the floor just below my doorframe was a small pile of dark, slimy liquid. It was a dark, thick substance, almost like oil, but with a smell so foul it made me gag. As I stared at it, something moved inside. It twitched like it was alive. Suddenly, the realization hit me. The pizza man never left. I slammed the door shut, locking it, but the knocking didn't stop. It never stopped. It grew louder, more urgent, and that whisper, that same raspy voice, echoed through the apartment. Don't open it. You're mine now. Now I never order pizza. But the knocks, they're still there. And I know deep down that it's only a matter of time before the door opens on its own. And when it does, I won't be able to close it again. It was just supposed to be a regular delivery. But that night, everything changed. I'd been running late all evening, and I knew I wouldn't have time to cook. So I ordered a pizza, just a simple meat lover's extra sauce. The delivery time was quoted as 30 minutes, but when the doorbell rang, I glanced at the clock and saw that it had been over an hour. I wasn't surprised. This city had its fair share of delays. I opened the door to a man I didn't recognize. He was in his late 30s, wearing a faded green jacket, his face tired, like he hadn't slept in days. He didn't look like the usual guy, but I shrugged it off. Sorry it took so long, he said, handing me the pizza without making eye contact. No problem, I said, fumbling with my wallet. As I handed him the cash, I noticed something odd. He wasn't leaving. He stood there, staring at me, his hands still gripping the pizza box. Are you okay? I asked, a little confused by the way he was lingering. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then, his eyes slowly lifted to meet mine. His gaze was intense, almost too intense, like he was studying me. I think I'll wait for you to open it, he said, his voice soft and flat. Okay, I muttered, trying to laugh it off. It seemed weird, but maybe he was just trying to make sure the pizza was okay. I took the box from his hands and opened it on the spot, setting it on the table. But when I looked inside, my stomach dropped. There was no pizza, just a pile of what looked like shredded paper, the edges burned, as if it had been scraped off something. The smell was wrong, like rotten food mixed with something metallic. I felt a wave of nausea, but the delivery guy just stared at me, completely still. What the hell is this? I whispered, backing away from the table. Without a word, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, stained notebook. He opened it slowly, flipping through pages filled with scribbled words and strange symbols. Do you ever wonder how close you are to the edge of things? He asked, his voice cold now, almost mechanical. I froze. My heart pounded. Was this a joke? Some kind of twisted prank? I needed to get him out of my house. Who are you? I demanded, trying to steady my voice. I'm just the one who delivers, he said, his smile growing wider, stretching unnaturally. I deliver everything. I stepped back, bumping into the kitchen counter. My eyes darted to the door. I needed to get him out, but my legs felt like stone. He slowly took a step forward. Don't worry, he said, as though he knew my thoughts. "I'll be gone soon." But I didn't wait. In a panic, I bolted toward the door, swinging it open. But as soon as the door cracked, I froze. The hallway outside was completely dark, no light from the street lamps, no sounds of traffic or people. It was like the entire world outside had been swallowed up by shadows. And there at the end of the hall was the delivery man standing in front of an open door. A door that hadn't been there just seconds ago. "I told you I'd be gone soon," he repeated, but his voice sounded like it was coming from everywhere, not just from his mouth. I slammed the door shut and locked it behind me, my hands shaking. My mind was racing. What the hell was going on? I turned around and saw the pizza box still sitting there on the table. But now something was different. The paper inside had changed. It was no longer just scraps, it was forming shapes. Faces. Eyes. I could almost hear whispers coming from the box, though I couldn't understand the words. I stumbled back, my breath coming faster. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, suffocating me. And then the knocking started. Slow, heavy knocks at the door. Knock, knock, knock. I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't. The sound was too familiar. It was the same slow, deliberate knock from before. I'm still here, alone in my apartment, with the door locked and every light turned on. But I can hear the knocking always. Every night, at exactly the same time. And every time I look out the window, there's nothing but darkness. I know it's him out there. I can feel it, watching. And now, every time I order pizza, I check the box before I open it. I'm terrified I'll see the same thing again. But what scares me more is that I know I will. Because he always delivers. I should have never opened the door. I can still hear the knock echoing in my head. Slow, methodical, almost deliberate. I thought it was just another pizza delivery. I was wrong. It started like any other night. I'd ordered a pizza, a large pepperoni, extra cheese, because nothing sounded better than a quiet evening at home. I was binge watching a show when I saw the delivery car pull up outside. A beat-up old sedan, the kind you don't expect to see around here. The driver, though, he didn't look like a usual pizza guy. He was tall, way taller than anyone I've seen in uniform, and his face was obscured by a large, hooded jacket. But I thought nothing of it, too hungry to care. When he knocked, it wasn't the usual rapid tap I expected. It was slow, almost deliberate, like he was savoring every second of it. Knock. Pause. Knock. Pause. I opened the door, trying to shake off the unease crawling up my spine. "Pizza," he mumbled, sliding the box toward me. His voice was raspy, almost strained. "Thanks," I said, reaching for my wallet. But as I looked up to hand him the cash, something in his eyes made my stomach drop. His eyes were wide, unnaturally wide, like someone who hadn't slept in days. And there was something wrong about his smile. It wasn't a smile. It was a grimace, stretched too thin across his face, as if it didn't belong there. "Enjoy your meal," he said, and before I could respond, he turned and walked away, dragging his feet in a way that made my hairs stand on end. I slammed the door behind me, but my heart was still pounding. The pizza smelled normal, but there was something off about it. The cheese seemed to gleam too much in the dim light, almost oily. I shrugged it off, sitting down at the kitchen table and opening the box. That's when I saw it. A note, folded neatly under the slice at the top. It was written in sloppy, frantic handwriting. "I'm watching you. Don't eat alone." My hand trembled as I dropped the note and shoved it to the side. I thought maybe it was a prank, some sick joke by the delivery driver. But as I ate, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. Every bite felt heavier, thicker. My stomach churned with something I couldn't explain. I kept hearing little sounds from outside, rustling leaves, faint tapping on the window. I told myself it was nothing, just the wind, but I couldn't ignore the feeling that someone was there watching. Then it came, a tapping. This time it was at the window. I froze. I didn't want to look, but my body moved before I could stop it. I glanced toward the kitchen window. There he was, the pizza guy, standing just beyond the glass, staring at me. His face was twisted, that grin still stretched too wide, and his eyes, those empty, hollow eyes, never blinked. I stumbled back from the window, heart racing. My mind screamed at me to do something, anything, but I couldn't. The knocking started again, slow and steady, the same rhythm as before. I grabbed the phone, dialing the pizza place, hoping this was some twisted joke. But the line was dead. The doorbell rang, and I swear I heard a voice outside whispering, "Don't eat alone." I ran upstairs, locking the door behind me, but I could still hear him. Out there, watching, waiting. And now, every time I hear that knock, I wonder how long it will take before he's on the other side again. I haven't eaten since that night. I can't, because every time I even think about food, I feel him, his eyes, his presence right behind me. I can still hear the knock.